The Planet Green Trees Show.
We have to learn from what happened with an intoxication and recreational branding in the 1960s with these compounds. These are very powerful compounds. We must deal with them in a mindful way, and the best way to educate society about these compounds is to do that through a therapeutic context and a wellness context, and then we can start getting into things like spirituality context and creativity context. And then after we've done all of those things, maybe we can start talking about psychoactivity. But these are very special, very unique compounds that must be respected. And if we don't respect them and do this right, we're going to be in a world of hurt.
What about
what you just suggested seems very opposite of the tact taken by the decriminalized nature groups in various places across the United States, which seek to decriminalize its possession and therefore take it away from a therapeutic use and allow it to be possessed by the general public.
I support decrim, right? But decrim is different than legalization,
yes.
And it's different than having retail stores where people can walk in and all they have to do is show their ID. Rick Doblin and MAPS thinks that you should have a driver's license for tripping, and that is part of legalization, and that you have to be trained to trip on psilocybin or mescaline or any of these compounds, and that you have to have a license. You have to have a license, and if you don't use the compound responsibly, that license gets taken away from you, and you have to go back into training and education so you learn how to use the compounds responsibly. These are some of the ideas that Rick Doblin and MAPS is iterating, and they make a lot of sense to me.
Why shouldn't anybody have the choice to use the drug if they want to?
Well, they do now. They do now. Basically, under a decrim rem, you'd be able to do that. And I think we need to move to the point that you're at, right? But look at the harms that have happened with respect to cannabis not being legalized right, and look at the vape pen crisis. You want people to start developing compounds in illicit markets and confusing everybody in the marketplace.
By the way, there is synthetic psilocybin, and that's what's used.
Yeah, of course, there's synthetics everywhere.
Fine.
Huh?
The Netherlands has shops with all the psychedelic drugs, essentially, that you can buy in these smart shops. And there's no real problems. You can go in a store. You have to have ID showing you're 21. Everything's fine. I would also just note...
Where is this at?
So how do they structure
Amsterdam. Actually, morel mushrooms, the morels, which are not mushrooms, they're the unflowered, under the earth part of the mushroom that... No, not morels. What am I saying? What are they called?
Right, man.
What are they called?
You may be totally right, and what's happening in Amsterdam is the model, and it's a matter of personal responsibility. And if you behave badly, then shame on you, and maybe that is the way forward.
Truffles.
But I do think that it is important to be really, really mindful with these compounds and to do it right. And I think that, some basic education and training before you can legally buy these compounds would be smart, even in Amsterdam, even if the reason there's not a lot of harm in the Amsterdam model is because a very, 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 very small fraction of the population is going in there. When you start having stories and media and legalization, and then millions and millions of people all at the same time want to jump in and start experimenting with these compounds, but they don't know about setting and intention, I worry.
For sure.
Okay?
You're not advocating recreational at this point. Not yet.
Look, I want people to be able to interact with these compounds, but I want them to have good experiences, and I want them to be well educated and know what they're getting into. Okay, because if you take psychedelics, particularly in higher doses, in the wrong setting, it can be a very uncomfortable, if not dangerous and harmful experience. And even if it's just totally uncomfortable for 10, 12, 14, 20 hours, it would be nice if you had a good experience
Sure.
with these compounds instead of a horrific experience.
So, upon purchase, you would advise a shaman or like a nurse come home with you to babysit you.
Shaman and people who
Some people
facilitate
do have that.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
They do have a babysitter.
So you're doing it in a person that controls the setting and environment.
And in case someone's freaking out, knows what to say.
Yeah.
Go to that person to have the experience, but they'll at least have a guide who can make
and
sure.
Maybe you only need to do that once or twice until you get your license, and then it's like, okay, you can trip at home. You can trip at home. You're fine. Okay. Yeah. You can go to a Grateful Dead concert and trip. You know how to do it. You've gone through it. You understand the importance of set and setting. You only have to trip once to understand that. if you take the right dose, right?
The Planet Green Trees Show.